Welcome and thank you all for joining us for this episode of the Crexi Podcast, an insider's look at all things commercial real estate. I'm your host, Ashley Kobovitch, Regional Director at Crexi, and today we are thrilled to sit down with Cherie Tedesco-Gamble. Before we dive in, a little bit about our guest. Cherie is the Managing Director of KW Commercial, based out of their Channelside, Tampa Central office. As a top producing agent of KW Commercial nationwide, Cherie attributes her tenacity and deep market knowledge to her success with brokering over $21.9 million in deals in 2021 alone. Her focus is on commercial real estate in Tampa Bay and the surrounding markets, the southeastern USA, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. She specializes in single tenant net lease, retail strip centers, retail redevelopment, boutique beach hotels with retail, and landlord and tenant leasing. In addition to her expertise in commercial real estate advising and strategic planning, Cherie has extensive experience in market data trend evaluation, market and financial analysis, business development, organizational restructuring, and operational management. These skills provide her with a clear understanding of her clients' specific needs and business goals so that she may offer solutions to uniquely fulfill those goals. She is also a recent winner of a Crexi Platinum Broker Award. Cherie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Ashley. Great to be here.
Of course. We'd love having you. So before we dive in, first topic for our listeners, I'd love to just begin by asking some deeper questions about that background, your career path, and how you got to where you are today. So first and foremost, what sparked your interest in commercial real estate? And then how did you get started in retail and hospitality in particular?
Well, when I left corporate America about 5.5 years ago, and then kind of deciding on what it is that I wanted to do, close friend of mine, which owns a small boutique brokerage, had suggested and asked me if I wanted to get my real estate license, and I said, and sell houses, in that sense. And no disrespect, I have a lot of great colleagues of mine that I happen to work with that are on the residential side, but that wasn't something that I was interested in. And he said, no, I meant commercial real estate because that's something that you already did. I just wasn't a licensed agent at that time. And it was just part of being in technology and working for the global company that I had worked with. That was part of the entire analysis that we did with providing, Fortune 50, Fortune 100 companies with the real estate acquisitions and integration and things like that. So that's how I got started in that way. So,
okay.
Then after I got my license, I went to work for that small, boutique brokerage, knowing a little bit at going into it. I mean, I knew about acquisitions and I knew about financial and legal. And one of the things that, I learned very quickly, which I'm very grateful for, is he's also been a certified appraiser for the past 30 plus years. So that is something that's come into a great deal of play to be able to do a market analysis or provide a BOV for a client, things of that nature. And learned a great deal, from him at that point. But what I didn't know and really didn't understand, but figured out very quickly that, there are so many elements that come into play with commercial real estate, many different verticals, ways from marketing and advertising, strategic planning. And I mean, literally with not given any, type of full direction or a game plan and just something that was new to me. I mean, I just kind of hit the streets and did like your traditional type of cold calling and door knocking and learned very quickly. I mean, within, I want to say maybe a few months, I was like, this is not working. It doesn't work. So I regrouped. I wasn't with them for a very long time before I moved over to KW Commercial. Um, but I just knew that way of going to market wasn't something that, after several years, working for a global 50 company in technology and working with the size companies that I had done, and being successful in technology that included real estate, I decided, with all of my knowledge and the things that I had learned through corporate trainings, to incorporate what I had learned from, a couple of the different companies that I had worked from a technology standpoint. So with that understanding, that's the reason why I went to market the way that I did go to market, and understanding from not only from an enterprise level, but from an investment, from acquisitions, from the marketing, from social media, and went to market that way. But I also did some traditional, just picking up the phone, had different lists, through different platforms that we happen to use, and just started flat out cold calling. That's how I actually got my first listing,
Yep.
is making introduction. It wasn't actively for sale. It was a strip center and a
Hmm.
retail strip center, and just started having conversation and dialogue with the ownership and building a rapport. But it wasn't me picking up the phone and just saying, "Are you interested in selling your property?" It was more about building relationships, and that's the way that I've always, in sales before, have always presented myself, and building that relationship, building that rapport, building that confidence and that trust.
Yep.
And so that's what has led to, multiple different types of deals, whether it was in retail or, hospitality, and one thing led to another. So that's kind of how I started in retail. It wasn't something that I really was had a geared focused on in the very beginning. It seemed more interesting. They were larger deals, so why
Yep.
not pick up the phone and just see if I could start there? So that's kind of how it started, and from the retail standpoint. So
There, there
yeah.
you, there you go. That's absolutely it. I love talking about that. I mean, I love going after, the larger whales, the bigger deals. You got to try your hand at everything. And if you can get the most commission or the most bang for your buck,
Right,
that's what we
right,
want to go after.
absolutely,
We
go
want to be
for it.
hungry. We want to make that money. That's why most people are in commercial real estate. So I absolutely love that. You kind of picked what you wanted to do and just went for it. And obviously it was really successful for you.
Right, thank you.
Of
Yeah,
course,
yeah.
of course. And to the second point, you always got to pick up the phone. You always got to make those relationships. Even if it's not a sale right away,
Right.
you can use that relationship down the road, and it's really just all
Mhm.
about building that brand and building that connection.
Right.
For you, I mean, I'm sure you brought a lot of value to these people that you were calling just straight out of the gates based on your experience, in analytics and evaluating market trends and things like that. Can you talk to our listeners about how that, set you up for your success and maybe separated you from some of the other people that maybe were calling on those same owners?
One of the things that I can definitely say, and I'm sure, all of my the colleagues that are out there, and my constituents, and there it's a lot of work in commercial real estate, and many, many, many long hours. And understanding from the retail standpoint, and I've only been licensed for a little over 4.5 years, but have been very grateful and blessed, and been very successful, and have a lot of great, high profile listings in that scenario. But I did a lot of research, from a retail standpoint. You have multiple different type of verticals that are out there. Visualization, with driving around, looking and see what's the co-tenancy mix, what are the reasons, what are the specific drivers that will actually make a specific type of a tenant wanting to move to a specific market, or in a specific area, be around other different types of co-tenancy that are the drivers that bring additional customers to a specific space, or a retail center or power center or something like that. So with understanding the buying uh, uh, the buying intelligence behind someone, and understanding, like very specific areas, living here in Tampa, um, we have, just like other markets, we have certain areas, there's, high diversification, but, due to not necessarily, income or the like full demographics. There are other softwares that are out there that you can actually use. Fortunately, I have a background like with software development and application, I have all those kinds of things. And understanding, the BI, the business intelligence, that comes behind why do people buy what they're buying, what is also with an expendable income, and then putting it all together. Why is it more desirable and, in an area where we have a large population of a Greek population. Actually, Tampa Bay has the largest Greek population in the entire United States. And why in that particular area? Why are certain types of of retail tenants wanting to be in a certain area? Well, if you understand, buying habits of the Greek community, then you understand certain types of things that they don't like, what they like to be around. So there's a lot of key factors that come into play and there's different software that's out there as well that you can be able to use as well. I don't use all the different types of software we have. We have a few that we use, but also, just having understanding of why, people are buying what they buy and, some good common sense and a lot of hard work. I know what I like, in that scenario and places that I like to go to and a diversification of different tenant mix. What types of tenant mix works well with others. There's, with healthcare and with physical fitness. You've got want to have entertainment, type of a platform that's there. There are drivers that, looking at from a retail standpoint, looking at different types of centers, having that diversification, the drivers that are bringing people that are there and then they're feeding off of one another. They may not have had known that, let's say physical fitness type of tenant may be there. Well, with physical fitness that is being from exercise, then there's lots of other types of things. You could have a tanning place. You want healthy concept food. You want to have, multiple different kinds of restaurants, dessert. And then you'll have, all different, clothing, equipment, just a lot of different types of things. So fortunately for me, understanding that, I'm very specific on the different places that I happen to represent and working with my clients and as they are with me.
Right.
But they do know that we put everything that we possibly can into it and we work very hard, on if it doesn't happen to come to us, we create a way to get tenants to come to us, and picking up the phone and the emailings and the marketing and the campaigns, all those different types of things. It's not just sitting back for, it's great, with other brokers coming to us or potential tenants reaching out to us, but it's our job to make sure, we find a co-tenancy of mix, and go through the vetting process for them. So anyway, hopefully that helps a little bit.
It does. Thank you for that overview and that wealth of knowledge. I mean, it's clear, you mentioned that you just got your, license 4.5 years ago, went into commercial real estate 5 years ago, right? That's a short amount of time to be able to be so successful. But just based on, that overview right there, it's clear to see, the reasons why, right? Building the rapport, making sure that you're understanding the market, using tools, little plug like maybe Crexi's intelligence portion of our pro platform, right? To understand the demographics, maybe if you're not so familiar, or to understand what a tenant might like, what other places, and shops or food or whatever is right around there. And then making sure in your retail strip centers that you're giving a variety, you're making sure that you're putting the right kind of people in there. So, that's absolutely awesome. And thank you for that overview. I really appreciate it. And I know our listeners do as well. So on to, kind of our next question. No one gets to where they are without some others that are helping them along the way. So Cherie, who were your key mentors that you had during your journey, and what lessons did you learn early on that positioned you for your rapid growth?
Not that anybody would really want to hear that. But I mean, yes and no. I'm very much of an entrepreneur, and it's within my DNA from both sides of, my mom, my mother, and my father, that I'll figure it out. When I moved over to KW, I knew what I was getting into, but in some degree, I really didn't know how. At that point in time, with going through a divorce, being a single parent, um, you know, unfortunately, there really wasn't a lot of tools for me at that point, or anyone really to go to at that point for from a mentoring standpoint. What I need, and that's one of the reasons why, another reason why I put so many hours into it. And no joke, literally is 16, 18, 20 hours almost every day, because I had two kids. I had to figure it out. It didn't matter. And there were a few times I was like, I can go back to regular corporate America and not be in my pretend corporate America. Because I look at it this way, I'm still working corporate America, but it's on my terms for the most part.
Mhm.
So, but for one reason or another, that was not that path I feel that was set for me, and I did a lot of research. I didn't have anybody to go to. It's not that I didn't reach out to anybody, but for the most part, it was something that I did a lot of research. I got my own legal library to understand and to continue learning, as I continue to learn now about, with real estate law. But I'm going to say for the first 2.5 to almost 3 years, it was something I just figured it out myself. I had not too many people, to actually be able to go to. Now, as I had mentioned, my first broker that I had, I'm very grateful to him, learning how to be able to provide appraisals, uncertified and not certified appraisals, but be able to appraise their property and go through that evaluation process. So, that one I'm very grateful for, and, see each other and all that other, those types of things. But I just dug in, right? That's
Mhm.
really what it was. And if I didn't know something, I just kept my mouth shut. To other brokers, some of the clients that I happen to have, was starting in retail. One of my clients is, one thing that's great with building rapport and building the trust, and with clients, and then making referrals to, with other people that they're either in business with, or, they have some type of relationship with. I had one particular client that was just hardcore when it came to single tenant. I mean, his data and the criteria that he had for me was really, really intense, like seemed almost impossible. And I went through literally thousands of properties. Wish I would have sold thousands or bought thousands or something like that from him. But through the other brokerages that were sending me information, questions that were asked for me, I just started putting two and two together and just started researching. So I'm grateful to many other brokerages that were out there that sent information or answered questions, asked me questions. Um, I learned a lot that way, and then
Mhm.
just started putting more and more and more together. And that's really kind of how it started. And then with meeting other brokers, there's a couple of brokers that have been in the industry for quite a period of time, that I've built some good relationships with them. And then if I needed to, bounce something off of them because I didn't really know where to go, there are a couple that I have had with that, in that scenario. So but not like a mentoring type of a program.
Got it.
Fortunately now, with KW, we do have a very robust, platform and resources and training. But it was after the fact that it already put all that together, because that's one of the things that I've actually been able to put together, and with my operations manager, and so we have something that's really robust there. But it was just a lot of, traditional old fashioned, I guess you want to call it, just hard work. I mean, lots of hours, lots of just complete dedication and not giving up, just
Yeah.
pushing through. That's what I had to do.
I love that. I always say in sales, right? There's always be closing, the classic line, but I
Right.
always say always be learning. Right. There's
Right.
always something that you can be learning. And one of my mentors, fortunate enough to have, a really great mentor here at Crexi, he said, I never had anyone to teach me anything. Right. Kind of like you. He's like, if I want to learn how to do something, I have to go and do it by myself. Right. I got to pick up the phone. I got to read the book. I got to, figure it out. And that's really, what is going to make you, the most successful is just actually putting in those hours of hard work and just getting it together. So I love to hear that.
Well,
So
if I may add to that, if you don't, I
yes,
mean, there
please.
are definitely things that when you don't always have to learn from your own mistakes,
Yeah.
and that scenario, you can learn from mistakes from others because in most
Correct.
situations, somebody has always been there, so I have through, the past 4.5 years, let's just say in the past year and a half, I mean, with learning from others, having conversations,
Hmm.
with other brokers, just doing some additional research. And then I do a lot of, professional and personal development, and coaching and training and all those types of things as well. And just apply that because you can pretty much apply, business coaching, life coaching, d- training on a continuous basis. You can always apply that to pretty much any area of your life. So
Of
it's
course.
not that I figured it all out. I don't want it to be that way. But when I, the first 2.5 years, I'm like, I didn't have really the time to try to continuously find someone. I just had to take the time, and I just figured it out,
Yep.
and worked it that way. So, and now
Yep.
it's much, much better.
Of
So,
course, of course. And
yeah.
now you can share your wealth of knowledge with other people and,
Mhm.
kind of help them in that way. So that's absolutely fantastic. Now diving in, let's get into, kind of today's topic. What a lot of people want to know about is Tampa's retail explosion. So can you do us all a favor and describe what trends you're seeing in Tampa's retail scene today versus maybe where we were 5 years ago when you just started in the market or, pre-COVID times?
Um, our market, even I'm going to say pre-COVID to some degree, um, has is always expanding. I mean, we live in such a beautiful place. I will definitely say that. I've lived here for 30 years, and I've seen such massive growth. Our weather, where we're located, centrally located, is very desirable, for people to want to move here. So, and as I mean, I've just seen so much growth, even, pre-pandemic, with getting my license and, new development. I even prior to get into commercial real estate and, I had seen new development for many years of downtown Tampa prior to, the big bust, real estate bust, that all of us or everybody went through just some one way, one form or fashion. And, with growth moving north of Tampa. As I said, downtown, St. Pete, Clearwater, so many different areas. So it's always been a constant, continuous growth. But obviously, with the pandemic and then after the pandemic, like even during the pandemic, when it seemed like a lot of places were shut down, I could say we were, maybe
Yeah.
a little bit, but for the most part, we really weren't. It was just a different type of communication, a little bit more of a distance or, in that scenario. But a lot of places from other states, due to, with our climate, I don't want to bring, you know, uh, Florida as a whole into the market in the way that, our state looks at things, but it just was really, really desirable for people to wanting to move, with moving to Florida. And it just happened to
Sure.
be with Tampa Bay as a whole. I think because of where we are located and how much we have to offer in our area, in the Tampa Bay area, it just made it even more desirable. So regarding different types of tenancy that's here, One of the things that I have seen is more of not necessarily as large a space as maybe some of the places, would have gone into previously as they are now. Now spaces for the most part are maybe half the size or three-quarters of the size of, instead of taking, let's say, 10,000 square feet, maybe they're taking half of that or maybe 7,500, but you're really seeing a different mix of tenancy. In that sense, you're seeing a lot of that healthcare, of primary care that's moving into urgent care, that's moving into just really making it more of a destination place where people can actually be able to go in and you have a multiple, a multiple tenancy mix. And and those are big drivers for different markets, different places, different strip centers, and it definitely hasn't slowed down, that's for sure. Lots of new development, renovations. Clearwater Beach, I'm not sure if you're familiar with, but the two most desirable markets to move into, and the hottest, I don't know if you want to call it number one or number two, but those two markets are Clearwater Beach and Key West. Those are the two main markets that were there. And the only reason why I happen to know that is because um, I was contacted from one of the largest development companies, globally, and they had reached out to me and asked me if I could meet with them, and they flew in one afternoon. And I met with them later that on Clearwater Beach, went over quite a few things because I represent a lot of Clearwater Beach as well from a retail standpoint and hospitality, hotel standpoint. And then they turn around and flew out. So, but
That's awesome. That's awesome. Really appreciate that overview. And definitely, I mean, Florida was, very fortunate to not slow
mhm,
down too much. So it was
mhm,
already, Tampa, Clearwater, et cetera, already doing really well in terms of the retail explosion. And then just continuing throughout that. And now, everything is back in full swing. So it's really exciting that you get to represent
mhm,
those towns and just continue to, increase the growth in those cities.
mhm.
So kind of going back into or getting off this a little bit and going more into your redevelopment projects, right? So you're heavily involved in those. What does the creative or reuse scene look like in Tampa today? What maybe are some hidden opportunities or potentially obstacles should investors know about this market?
Well, from a redevelopment, I have a couple of great clients that are developers that also, with multifamily and with retail. So the redevelopment, majority of the ones that I'm doing are with the redevelopment with multifamily and with retail. So that is something that's very exciting because their development are absolutely gorgeous places, and they've done quite a few. And how that I got introduced to a couple of the different parties and developers was through relationships that with other partners they may be in business with, and have other different type of assets that um that they happen to share, or and so that just basically had come into play through the course of the time. um there's a couple other, I mean, you see a lot in the Tampa Bay market, and as I'm sure probably in other markets as well, with multifamily, and mine always has retail component to it. And so I think that's one of the things that's strong there, and one of the reasons why you bring it in, and in desirable areas that people are wanting to be. So I'm working on a new project that's going to be in the heart of Dunedin, which I'm really excited about, and have about 40,000 square feet of retail at the bottom. Some beautiful 4-story, condominium apartments, and it's a small little area of Tampa, but right on the water as well. That's nice. And then I've got other, different redevelopment from a retail standpoint, but a different from, you got a lot of, different types of storage companies. Not a lot, I will say. There's only mainly 5 different kinds of the main parent companies,
Sure.
and happen to know that because of one of the national ones that I happen to work with, and becoming educated with working with them in the state of Florida, which is awesome. But those are in retail locations, and so that's another area coming into play from the storage, but then also adding out parcels, redevelopment, of an existing area, bringing in some co-tenancy mix, adding it along with storage. So that's something that's new, because normally you'll see storage just by itself, but we're adding in retail components to it, makes it nice. So some hidden gems that may be out there. I just one of the things that I'm doing right now are just looking for areas that fits from a redevelopment standpoint. A couple of my clients, what their criteria is, and that's just taking the time and doing the hard work that's there, and seeing what's available. One of the things that I can say is knowing ahead of time from the zoning, what the FAR is, what the land use, all those different types of things that most commercial brokers already know, but knowing that ahead of time and trying to get there as quickly as you possibly can. There's different shortcuts instead of having to contact the municipalities and finding that out. But after working with so many of them for a period of time on many different projects, I mean, definitely we've been able to get it down to a very quick science that we know very, very fast, with even not having to contact them on what we can actually do. So with putting that together, I mean, that's kind of like a little hidden gem. But getting things over to to our clients that we're representing from the buy side or redevelopment side, that would be kind of like I would say like a hidden gem from an investment, with working with a broker that's really willing to put in that work. I mean, I'm sure you had probably heard about the one with I'm trying to think of his name right now. It's here in St. Pete, and they beat us out of it. God, I can't even think. It's off of right off of like 66th Street, 34th and 66th, with Tesla bringing a new facility that's here. So with one of my clients, that same facility, Tesla ended up beating us out of that, which is awesome, because they're putting a new facility and we need it, for the Tampa Bay area. That just brings more and more. But that was just something, it wasn't something that was on the market. Just happened to reach out to, who the owner was. There was quite a few of us that were trying to get this particular site. But there are things like that. If you put the work in, what it is, the size of the site that you need, and put it together as quickly as you possibly can, go in your highest and best offer, like,
Yep.
and, making an offer that way. So those are kind of like those hidden gems, for maybe an investor that's from a larger side, wanting to come into the market here. So.
Absolutely. No, I love those stories. And that's so creative on how you can do redevelopment. And, you mentioned, investors coming in like storage. What other potential kind of investors are you seeing, if any, that are participating in Tampa's retail market? And what do these groups look at for potential investment? So, is it institutional or more private, or unique operators, as you mentioned, storage, or potentially any healthcare? What does that look like for you?
From an investment standpoint, I mean, I don't work with too many REITs, and that's, I mean, if it comes from, from the purchase side, then, there are a lot of different properties that I've looked at that, that REITs do happen to own them. But in my experience, from an investment standpoint, the and investors that I have different clients of mine, from many different states, and I would say 75% of them, I've never met them in person. Only been on the phone, never met them in person. Maybe even be 80%, So, or it took, a couple of years after so many deals, and finally they happen to be, here in Tampa, like, oh my gosh, we finally, get to meet, in that scenario. So really understanding, what that investment group what they're looking for. I mean, I have a good understanding what their portfolio is. So, I mean, I have clients of mine that only want, single tenant, absolute triple net, type of assets to acquire. So with that, what that criteria is, what their cap rate is, and we all know a cap rate is, it can come and go, you can, one wants, the seller wants a lower cap and, buyer wants a higher cap. It's just play of the numbers.
Yep.
So, knowing what is our budget, what other type of assets fit into their portfolio that I happen to like, if they're corporate guarantee that's there, if it's a franchisee, in that
Sure.
scenario, how many, different types of franchises do they happen to have? What's the bigger take or the bigger look of, from the financial standpoint, so yeah, so it just kind of like really depends, I mean, I have, multiple different kinds that are looking at ones that are a single tenant, that's all they want, that just adds to their portfolio, they don't want hardly any of a risk. And I have other clients of mine that they want as much upside as they possibly can, they have boots that are here on the ground, they have their own contracting, company internally. They have their own architectural. So for them, to be able to do that, they have the infrastructure that's already in place. So for them, it's a different kind of a play of an acquiring an asset or redevelopment or whatever it may be. Then you have ones that want multiple tenant mix. I have, 4 or 5 different kinds that want different things. So, but for the most part, I mean, cash transactions, pretty easy, 1031s. I think of all the different deals that I've actually done, I've only had, now finally in my third that actually had financing. All the other ones were, just were cash transactions, 1031s, stuff like that. So, but
That's awesome. I appreciate, the overview there and the insights into different deals that you've personally done. It's always fascinating just to kind of hear the deal terms and, potentially what people want. And, it does vary on a case by case basis. So it's awesome that you have that knowledge and you know what people are looking for. And it's really asking those questions and matching the right kind of asset to that.
right.
So appreciate that. Now moving more into, our third topic, just kind of retail as a whole, right? So although maybe not in Tampa, retail in general has faced heavy headwinds in the last few years, but seems to really be turning a corner. What opportunities or potentially challenges do you see ahead for participants in the sector?
I'll start off with challenges.
Okay.
And the reason why I say that is it's more so on the market lease rates.
Okay.
So hopefully, and I'm going to say the majority of retail businesses are out there, whether they're a franchise or a single type of, with their business plan that they've actually put together. There's a budget, that has come with it, an operating budget and, so many different elements that are comprised of that actual budget. Okay. And with that, because the market rates have in some areas have gone quite high, I think that is a challenge that's there.
Okay.
So from a realistic standpoint, one of the biggest things is with redevelopment or renovations, being able to get, the materials, as we all know, to, within a timely manner, and then working with, contractors and subcontractors and not being able to, guarantee pricing. So, that right there has been something that has been a challenge. I know one of the hotels with one of my owners on Clearwater Beach, we currently have 4 hotels that are there, and we were in the process of building another one after we had done a parking garage, to accommodate, because Clearwater Beach was only, so large, but we can't get any guarantee on pricing because things have just, up and down and interest rates and, all that other kind of stuff, so we've got, 3 other hotels that we were working on, that are right down the road, on our, not on Clearwater Beach, but you're driving down south on what we consider, it's like Gulf Boulevard goes all the way, like north and south in that area. And so we've got some other hotels that we're working on there that we had already started. But so those are the I think probably like the biggest challenges or setbacks. But from tenants, I think the expectations are, and I generally, the majority of the time, represent the landlord. But if a tenant's not represented, or if there's something that happens, and then we have the opportunity to capture them as a client, then absolutely, both sides, bring them in if it
For
if it
sure.
fits in one of theirs, then absolutely, and the expansion, all that kind of stuff. But I think with the expectation of what the landlord should offer to a tenant, for a TI standpoint, I think that's another thing that in some cases is kind of unrealistic. Um, you know, Actually, expecting the landlord to, provide so much, towards their build out. Well, I represent the majority of the time the landlord. Well, who provided the build out or the build for it besides the bank? I mean, they had to pay for it, So I think some unrealistic expectations from a tenancy standpoint, not all, but I've just more so come around and like, okay, well, what have you done for me lately?
Yeah.
Kind of like that attitude. What are you going to give us for this? Well, it's this, and this. That's what we're going to do. And part of your business plan should have been, had in there for operations and for build out costs for, so many other contributing factors. And so that, those are some challenges that I think that we're working with that was the other way. I kind of got us off task there. I went so much on the challenges. So from a positive standpoint, you were asking about that. We have just so many different types of businesses that are wanting to move here from a national franchise of all the different kinds of verticals, and um, they're wanting to go to multiple different places within the Tampa Bay. We have corporate ones, that are here, new concepts that are amazing. I came across a new concept from one of my colleagues out of one of our KW Atlanta offices and asked me, if I would be able to work with them. It's just amazing, just what this would end up being and what it's bringing. Just creativity of how people come up with something, something that's different and and bringing it and to different markets and things that you haven't seen before, which is just, awesome. I mean, we are, I think, close to 5.5 million people in the Tampa Bay area. I mean, we've grown tremendously. So, I mean, it's great to see, with the diversification, of just all the different kinds of people that we happen to have, within the city and the surrounding cities, the growth, but we still have, to me, we still kind of have a hometown feel. Even though we have lots of traffic, lots of people, but it's very different. I mean, you can go into, a really nice, elegant restaurant, and be dressed, to the nines or whatever, or you can wear a pair of nice khakis, it doesn't really matter. People are still very, very friendly. That's here. So I think that is a big driver with people wanting to move. You really don't have much of pretentiousness that's here. And you have a lot of corporate companies that are moving. I don't know if you would consider like their headquarters, so they still have headquarters, but maybe they're, second, co-headquarters, if you want to call it that. But a lot of, people moving here and, retiring and or semi-retiring and but they still have large corporations. So
absolutely. I mean, Cherie, even with some of those challenges that you mentioned, you sold me on moving to Tampa. Better move over. Another
right,
right.
right.
No, I mean it sounds really exciting, really, really good things to have. And you're lucky to be a part of that. And any investors is lucky to have you, potentially represent them, or landlord and things like that. So moving on to our last topic, just some advice for our listeners here. So, what pieces of advice would you give to investors looking to acquire retail in your market, or potentially your peers or fellow brokers?
Well, those are three different areas. I would say from an investment standpoint, and like an investor, and with working, with a broker, and or a firm that understands you and that's really willing to understand what your needs are, what timing. There's just so many different key factors, into play, and being able to have, the infrastructure to be able to support what it is that, that they're looking for, and then making sure that it's a good fit. I mean, not necessarily is it a good fit for everyone. I have great rapport with, I'm going to say, I'm not going to say all of the clients that I happen in, because some of them, I've worked with, not that it's been that long. And I have my oldest client that I've worked for 4.5 years, but I mean, it's such an honor, with working with him. And he says, and he has all kinds, all different kinds of assets, and started from scratch, and says to me, well, I trust you like I trust my wife, in that sense. And I work with it. So that's, built, with that trust that's there. And I have my own like self-ownership meaning in there, because they know that I look at the places that I represent them, or when I'm buying it, I'm doing it for myself. So it really kind of like depends on, if it's a good fit with whomever it is that they're working with, then with, I'm going to say, someone that's new getting into it, and, even other, commercial brokers that are out there, platforms like Crexi. I can really say that, Crexi has been a huge contributor to helping us with our database on, we have a very extensive database. It's very granular, from being able to break it out, understanding, I mean, if I had half a dozen more, my goal for this year is really big. I'm going to do everything I possibly can to be able to hit it. Be like, is that possible? Yeah, it's possible, but that's a lot of hours that into. But it also takes a lot of infrastructure to be able to hit massive goals like that. But platforms, as I said, like with Crexi, I mean, there's so many different things that come into play, and that's when I said, like, I didn't have anybody to be able to go to, to like, how do you put that together? How do you put this infrastructure from an operations standpoint, because there's so many platforms, from a marketing, from a CRM standpoint, from an intelligence, from automation, like all these different things. And, it takes manpower. So you have to be able to have the support to be able to do it, So, key people, I used to think, because I was so hard on myself and I had such, high expectations, and, I'm going to be more accountable to myself than somebody else is going to be to me. I'm like, nobody's going to be harder on me than I'm going to be on myself. So, I know I've got to be able to get it done. So, people that work with me, and I say, don't work for me, but work with me, because we work together, even though that they're paid employees, but still we work together and we collaborate together, and their expectations are just as high as what mine is. I think that mine were way too high, so I kind of give it a little bit of slack. No. Through some professional training, I realized that, why should I not have the same expectations for them, or have that for themselves, and they're not the player, or key player that should be on the team. in that scenario. So, I know I'm kind of like going a little bit all over it, but those are some key elements that whether you're, with existing someone that's been in the industry for many, many years or someone that's new that's coming into it. And, one of the biggest things also is it really depends on your own expectations of what you're wanting to accomplish. We all have different expectations of ourselves and what success means to us, as individuals, and really thinking about what that means to that individual and what they're wanting to do. I come from, both my parents were creators and made things happen, and being out there and being very successful. And so that's just something that my goals that I set for myself are really high, and I go after it. So just really take a look at what it is that they want to do. So, but
I love that you gave us so much information there. From the investor standpoint, you got to find the right fit. You got to find the right broker. It's all about a mesh with anything in life, right? Your relationships, your therapist, right? Your broker, right? They're kind of all the same one, right? You got to be able to have that trust. You got to be able to have that understanding. And then I think it's also personal, just tying it all up for people that want to get into the industry or your peers is just set your goals, right? You have to know what you yourself want to accomplish. You have to have a roadmap to get there, and you have to put in the hard work. That's something consistently I've heard you say, over this podcast. And what I absolutely love, and I think that everyone needs a reminder of it at the end of the day, you create your own luck. Right. You will do however well at you want to do it's about putting in the work. You get out what you give. So make sure that you're giving to all of your clients, make sure that you're giving to yourself, and really just being that advocate for yourself and others. And that's really where you're going to win. So I've truly enjoyed everything that you've said, and kind of got me energized. I want to run through a wall right now. So thank you.
No, you're welcome. The other thing I just want to add, and this is like in any business, anything that we want to do. I mean, I have a great passion and love for what it is that I do. I really honestly believe on what it is that I do, and I think that's what also helps pushing. So that's a key factor. I think that, I mean, yeah, there are times that I just, say, put me out of my misery, with certain things that I happen to go through, but I honestly really love what it is that I do. My, the clients that I happen to work with, they see that passion. Like, oh my God, you're just talking about, real estate again and this, and just, just reports I'm doing, just, I don't know, there's a lot of passion and a lot of desire in that sense. And yes, we are fortunate. I've been grateful, compensated very, very well, but earned it. I've said that, a couple of like, we paid you too much. I'm like, no, you didn't. I earned it, in that scenario. But we joke about that, but they know, I mean, putting your whole heart into it and just diving into it and understanding and enjoying it, liking what you do. If you have a passion and you really like it, it's not like you're getting up and I'm going to work every day. I mean, I have an office in downtown Tampa. I'm hardly ever there. I love working from my office at the home. I mean, I'm looking out, I could turn around, I'm right on the water on the intercoastal on the beach. So, but that was with hard work. So I love looking at my office. I mean, that's my office looking out these windows that are right here,
Absolutely.
So,
That's your reward for all the hard work. And if you don't have passion, you have nothing. And if you're passionate, then other people will be passionate, and they're going to reflect what you project out. So that's so awesome. Well, thank you so much, Cherie. We are thrilled that you've been able to join us here today and shared all of your insights. I know you're very busy, and we appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us. And where can people of course. Where can people find you if they want to get in touch? So your email, your social media, or LinkedIn?
I have all. So either my email, I mean, my
What's your
cell
email,
phone
Cherie?
that's on there. It's cherie.tedesco@kw.com.
Perfect.
Yep. And then LinkedIn, definitely I have stuff that's on LinkedIn, I used to do a lot more posting on LinkedIn of information, informative and content, for clients. And that's another place where I need to hire somebody that just works just specifically for my social media, because that's a lot. Don't really do much on, Facebook or anything like that, or, I have an Instagram page, but really don't do a lot. But it's mainly, from a business standpoint, Facebook or an email, or just pick up the phone and call.
Pick up the phone and
That's
call.
where,
We
right,
love that too. We love that
right,
too.
yes, yeah.
Well, thank you so much. And thanks to everyone who tuned in today. If you enjoyed this episode, do not miss the next one. Visit go.crexi, that's CREXI.com/podcast, and sign up to get the next episode delivered straight to your inbox. Of course, you can also subscribe to the Crexi Podcast on your favorite podcast app, and check out our YouTube channel for video recordings of each episode. Take care and be sure to tune in next time.